and they look like this. You highlight the chords that you want to use. They sound really nice in relation to your reference tone. And then you copy paste them a bunch, mute the reference tone. You can just fully delete it actually. I just deleted it over here. And then any of the clips that you didn't choose that you muted, you can also delete. And at the end, you're just left with all these really cool chords that you just played and figured out by ear. This is a really useful technique because it really helps to play along with something and use your ear when creating chords. I got this technique from playing along with this pedal, the EHX Freeze. I also play guitar a little bit, and the way that this pedal works is if you press this foot switch here, whatever your last note that you played was just keeps playing out the pedal. Kind of sounds like a weird bagpipe or almost like a drone. It's just a continuous note that plays. It gives you this pad or this texture that you can kind of like solo over or write melodies on top of. So using this pedal and like messing around with this made me think about how could I do that with keyboard and write progressions by ear in an intuitive way using a drone, but without using any pedals. And so here's the method that I came up with. What is a chord pack? Well, a chord pack is just a collection of chords that you can use to resample in your tracks. Instead of like playing out a whole keyboard line, you're just playing individual chords and holding the chords for as long as you can. You chop them up to the pads and then you can remix a track that way. It's kind of like using static recordings of piano rather than like sampling from vinyl or like writing your own song. Here's what a chord pack sounds like. And I don't think I could have come up with those chords on my own on paper. Maybe I could have, but I don't think I would have done as good of a job. So this is a two-part video. The first part is, what's a reference tone? Sounds like this. How did I create this? Command-Shift-T creates a new MIDI track. And what I used was this AUMIDISYNTH made by Apple. If you go under plugins and you click on audio units, you click on Apple, you go down here to AUMIDISYNTH, you can see that this basic synth opens up. It sounds like this. Like as far as I can tell, it's a sine wave. It just sounds like a smooth tone. If we go down a few octaves, there could be some attack at the start, like a little bit of click. All right, so we have a continuous C. There's our C. How do we know it's a C? Well, if I put a tuner on the front and I press play, C comes up. So we have a perfect C note right now. The next thing we could do is bounce this track in place. This way we could change the start and end points and add some fades. And now we have our AUMIDISYNTH that sounds like this. Sounds exactly like what we had before. So at the start here, you might see that there might be a little click. Like to me, there's nothing there. But by clipping this or cropping this, you can add a fade. We can fade it in as smoothly as we want. So I'm going to copy paste this a bunch of times so we have a continuous tone. Now if you see that I take the looper off, we have a huge stretch of space that's just the C note continuously playing. If I wanted to play chords in the key of D, I could just throw a D on in the background, and then from there try and play some things. I know a D is D, F sharp, and A. I know that that's a D chord, right? And I know after that the second chord is an E minor. And I know after that there's an F sharp minor as the third chord. And I know it's G after that for the 4 chord, etc. But just programming all of those chords, like the 7 diatonic chords, is really boring. You just end up with the same 7 chords every single time. And so in order to make your chord progressions more interesting, it really helps to play interesting voicings. Like instead of playing this D, you might play... Sounds kind of cool. As I'm playing here, what I'm doing is I'm reaching with my fingers across the keyboard. Here's the keyboard. And I'm picking out notes, playing them one at a time, and really focusing on just what they sound like when blended together. I'm not recording this to drums. I'm not worried about imprinting these at like 96 BPM. I'm just worried about how the notes sound in combination with each other. And then if I like the combination, what I do is after having arpeggiated all of them, I press them as one collective unit. All right, so they should just be like one chord that plays right at the same time. It's also okay sometimes if they arpeggiate a little, like this one. Like the last note is the highest. It kind of goes do-do-do-do-do-do. Very nice. Without the reference tone, it sounds like this. And I think that you can see in this recording, what I'm doing is I'm kind of arpeggiating them at first. Like do do, do, da, da. I'm like actually sounding them out. Being like, no, that's not right. That's kind of close. You know what I mean? And so I'm just literally sounding it out, arpeggiating them, playing them along. And then when I get to a chord that I actually want to sample, I just stamp it, you know? Take all your fingers and just go bang. You just press them all at the same time. So what you end up with are like these nice solid block chords. And from these like 40 something chords, just to make it easy on myself, I chose my 25 favorites because I'm going to cut it to one of these mini keyboards that has 25 keys. So I want one chord per key. That's just an arbitrary constraint that I came up with. But my intention at the end here is to take this audio track and then bounce it to tape. So all the chords that I'm going to resample in my track sound like they've come from cassette because they actually have. And I hope that this now makes sense. The idea is that you loop a tone in the background. Once you've figured out some chords that you really like on top of that drone, you can select them and then you can omit all the rest. You can also omit that reference tone. After having deleted the reference tone, I laid out all the chords just at the start of a bar, or like the start of a measure, so they're all nice and gridded up. And then I extended their tails just a little bit, so they're all nice long chords. Sometimes the chord is just too short. Like if this was maybe half the length, you really want a longer sample, especially since these are going to be chopped up to the pads. Like you want to sustain the chords for as long as you can. So here I wanted my chords to be 1-2 bars. For each one of my chords, I grabbed all the MIDI notes by doing select all, Control A, and then I grabbed the tails and I just extended them all the way to the third bar. So they'd be each 2-bar chords. And for my next video here, I'm going to teach you how to get perfect levels. So this is a 2-part video. The first part is how do we create a chord pack? What's a reference tone? And how do we create a chord pack using a reference tone? And video 2 is going to be how do we get perfect levels when recording to tape using the reference tone? So the reference tone has 2 purposes. Stick around, come back next Tuesday for it. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening. Take care.